talk prepared for you guys today. It's around this book. If you have not seen or read this book, buy it, read it. It's called The Science of Scaling by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Okay. Tony Robbins read this book and said this book is going to reframe the science behind scaling as we know it. The Science of Scaling. So Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote this book. 2 Fridays ago on our partner call, Dr. Benjamin Hardy spoke. He showed up and spoke on our place partner call. And so basically from his notes and his guidelines from the book, I have a summary to go over with you. It's really good. If you're interested in scaling your business at a very extreme and high level, this book is for you. But if you're not, if you're happy with just small growth spurts along the way, this book could still be good for you, or it might not be. But I recommend reading it. It's an awesome book. Today we're going to discuss scaling. What is scaling? Okay, so Dr. Benjamin Hardy starts with the basics. Scaling means pushing it to an extreme. Use extreme goals to unlock new pathways. This starts with having a different future. Dr. Benjamin Hardy goes into linear psychology versus having a solving to scale mindset. Let's start with linear psychology. What is linear psychology? Linear psychology is when your past shapes your present and your present shapes your future. The problem is with that, the past becomes the driver and predictor of the future. And the problem is most people use their past performance to shape their goals. That's called growth, not scale. So for example, if I close on 40 houses this year because now I know what it takes to close on 40 houses, I'm going to go for 50 or 60 next year just because I'll have that grit and knowledge to do it. That's linear psychology. That's using your past to shape your present versus using your future to shape your present. So the purpose of a goal for most people is to look at your present situation. What is your present situation now? And check this one out. Setting linear goals is just a failure avoidance strategy. Sometimes setting goals, most of the time when people set goals, they don't know this, but they're just doing it to avoid failure, right? If I have a listing on the market that's overpriced, and to get it to the right price just to get an offer and sell it, I have to speak to the seller about repositioning the house on the market by doing a price reduction or a price improvement. I just avoided myself from failing, not necessarily scaled. I did not scale. I literally just I avoided myself from failing and went from a negative just to a balanced main framework. That's kind of what he says, like the example I'm getting from linear psychology. Okay, the driver of a fixed mindset, which is linear psychology, is to avoid failure. Linear thinking is using the past to shape the present and the present to shape the future. Now, solving to scale mindset, completely different, and it's awesome. Check this out. It's so much easier and simplistic to look at your business from a 10 times goal versus a 2 times goal. If my goal is to produce 10 million in revenue, well, times 2 next year, I'm going to times 2 my goal and produce 20 million in revenue versus a times 10 produce 100 million in revenue, right? So that's a times 10. That's a more impossible goal. So go for a goal you can't achieve. Why? Because you're forced to restructure and solve for scale. Scale is not using the past as the basis. You want to use a much bigger scale to out future versus looking at the present. So scale means you're scaling something up and out. You're pushing it to an extreme. Linear is kind of like straight and maybe like an angle up. Scale is straight up. So you want to set impossible goals to kick out the dead ends. Letting go of dead ends, that's a path that's much more powerful. It's a much more powerful thing. What is a dead end? What do I mean? So you expose your gaps in knowledge when you solve to scale, and you are willing to progress and advance at extreme levels. So say like your framework is the base of your business. It's basically what you do as far as income producing activities and non-income producing activities. And you have all these different goals that probably conflict with one another. There's more complexity, less simplicity if you're linear thinking your goals to success. Okay? When you scale upward, you basically identify your framework, raise your floor. The frame underneath your floor, you wipe out completely. It's non-existent at that point, okay? Because by raising your floor at an extreme level to hit that extreme goal that's improbable, you identify false means, okay? You get out the noise. You find out quickly what works and what doesn't work. Going for scale filters out the noise. Solving for scale allows you to look at everything you are doing and simplify, right? So basically, you're breaking the system consistently, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. You identify your framework, you raise the floor. By raising that floor, you break the system, you find out what doesn't work, what does, you get rid of what does not work, you keep what does, you raise the floor again, and you do that process all over again. You find out what doesn't, you leverage what doesn't, or you completely eliminate it, okay? And that way, the main point of reference is simply that straight line going up. It's so much more simple. There's less complexity, and the complexity is eliminated if your goal is to scale. That's your goal, to scale. One goal is to scale upward. Yes, there are other goals that we have to set to achieve this scale, and the book goes in further detail. That's why you have to read it. Now, let's talk about mindset. To me, mindset will be the hardest thing to get the wheels turning with this science of scaling, right? The hardest part for people is raising the floor. Why? Because when you raise the floor, you're going to disappoint people. And that's the hardest part for people, is to disappoint other people. What do I mean? When you raise the floor and look at your framework underneath you and get rid of it, that might mean getting rid of people who work with you and for you. Okay? Hiring new people who are on board with this scaling process. All right? Like-minded people who want to achieve the same thing as you do. It's just, look, you do what it takes, right? So all a fixed mindset does is avoid failure. Scaling, right? That's a whole different concept. So with a scalable mindset, you are comfortable knowing you do not have the answer, and you're willing to expose your gaps in the gains, right? Why? Because you're raising your floor, and then with underneath the floor, you have just exposed what's not working in your business. Other people will see it. You have to talk about it with the people you work with and find out innovative ways to fill in the gap with a gain, raise the floor again, fill in those gaps with a gain, raise the floor again. It's a constant breaking and fixing of the system. And a goal properly set is already halfway achieved. So if you properly set your goal with a means to scale, you're halfway there before you've even begun. And this is a big one. Shorter timelines forces you to cut the fat and identify the levers that work. So if my goal is to create a faith-based production company and make faith-based films within 10 years. I want to be doing that in 10 years. Scaling, solving to scale will mean how can I times 10 that goal and shorten the timeline from 10 years to 3 years. So to times 10 or times 100 that goal is to build a studio where other production companies can set up shop and make faith-based movies. And I'm not going to do that in 10 years. I'm going to do that in 3 years. That sounds impossible to me, right? Like I would have to reframe, reinnovate everything I'm doing. The way I'm operating now, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm going to force myself to further identify my current frame, okay? Come up with a strategy to raise the floor so that everything underneath the floor is no longer useful to me, right? So an impossible goal cuts out dead end thinking. If you were to solve your goal in 1 year, how would you get there? That's the first question I would ask myself. What would I cut out? What is only necessary, and how can I maximize only what is necessary? So you see how this journey of scaling becomes more simplistic, less complexity, more simplicity, because your mindset is on scaling only, right? So raising the floor is getting rid of things that don't best serve you, and that's going to make your life so much more simple. You let your future be the base of what you want to do in the present. You let your future be the base of what you want to do in the present versus grading your present moment, your present goals based on your past successes. Now, one last thing, letting go. That's probably going to be my and most people's main obstacle here is letting go of dead-end paths. Letting go of dead-end paths is one of the most powerful things we can do because we're used to monetizing the dead ends. You know, Elon Musk once said something to the effect that the biggest mistake an engineer can do is to monetize what's not working on their project, is to monetize what's not working in their business. And we're so used to monetizing what's really not working for us, or it's serving us well, but it's not serving us the best. It's a good path, but it's not the best path. So letting go of the good path that's not the best path is hard to do, but it's a powerful thing if we can do it. One little liner that can help you get your mind right to help you achieve this is just to think and to realize that the pain of stagnancies, say stagnancy is linear thinking, the pain of stagnancy has to be more painful than solving to scale. Because solving to scale could be painful at first. I mean, it's a new way of really accelerating, right? And there could be some heartbreak with partners along the way, a lot of growing pains, a lot of growing a lot at once in a short amount of time, which can be eye-opening for you, right? So there could be some pain there. But the pain of stagnancy, to me, man, that's much more painful than solving to scale. And you have to see that. An amateur is easily spotted because they try to do too much. So linear thinking, you're going to have more complex goals that conflict with one another. Solving to scale, you have one simplistic goal. That one means to an end. That one chief aim that you focus on. It's so simple. You focus on that one chief aim that leads to an improbable ending, right? You're going to have a more simple path. Think about it. Most people would rather see a linear fixed outcome rather a scaled improbable outcome. So don't be afraid to disappoint people and leave your security blanket behind you. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.